Tiffany Jones with Kenza Collective. Tiffany and I connected through the Hey Mama network and bonded over our shared values of supporting women, educating women, empowering women, and we both have our own businesses. So that's how we connected. And I was, lucky enough to be a guest on her podcast and hers and Beth's. And now we're kind of turning the tables, and you're my guest, and we'll do a little Q&A. So Tiffany, I would love to, just have you share a little bit of background about yourself and then how you came to form Kenza Collective.
Sure. Yeah. So was born in San Jose, California. No, I'm just kidding. I won't start all the way back there.
But I was all ready to sit back with my tea and tell me the story.
Yeah. So born and raised in California, we'll just say that. And my career journey started in film production, actually. I was introduced to film in high school and loved everything about it. So I went to school for film production and got a degree in that and worked on a lot of different various TV shows and news, KTLA News in Los Angeles. I was an intern there in college, which was really interesting and pretty crazy. I was there for the morning segment, so I had to be there at 3 a.m. It was nuts.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, I stayed in film for a while. I started a nonprofit film festival when my husband and I lived in DC. That ran for 3 years and raised a bunch of money to help just raise awareness about water issues in the world. And then we also did some really cool projects in different countries. And then I was introduced to the world of co-working. So I kind of took a break from film, and in film, my role was really as a line producer, production manager, production coordinator, really coordinating all the pieces. Went into co-working, helped a friend of mine start a co-working space in Silver Spring, Maryland, right outside DC. Loved it. And then got a job with Next Space, which was one of the original co-working chains, I guess you could say, and was managing all 9 of their spaces up and down the West Coast. And there was one in Chicago too, kind of randomly. And that took us back to California. And then from there, I went back into kind of agency life and became the producer at a creative agency where we did websites and apps and branding and messaging and all of those great things. And that was a really great job for me because it was super fast paced. I had to juggle a lot of projects. I managed our entire internal team. I managed all of our clients, all the projects, was writing proposals, 6-figure proposals. It was a pretty big role. And I really did like it. I was really thriving there. It was a small team, and just was a really fun gig for me. And then I got pregnant and had my baby, Mackenzie, which is what Kenza is named after.
Oh, okay. Got it. There it is.
Yeah, I was going to tell you that's how you can remember. And that's when, so I took some time off, obviously, after I had her, but only about 4 months or so, and went back to work. And even though our work was pretty flexible, not flexible, they actually weren't flexible, which is why I had to leave, but we worked only 4 days a week. So we worked 32-hour weeks, 4 days a week. And I thought, okay, that's great. I'll make this work.
Right.
But I just didn't like it. There was still a lot of restrictions around hours, getting your time in. And I kind of had this one moment where I walked in one day and it was, I don't know, maybe a Wednesday or something, beautiful day outside. And my daughter was home with my husband. And I had gotten my work finished maybe around 2 or 3 or so in the afternoon. But technically, according to the traditional workforce rules, you got to get your 8 hours in. And in that moment, I realized that someone else was dictating the amount of time, both the amount and when I could spend with my new baby. And I just wasn't okay with that. I couldn't do that anymore. That was not, I'm a very organized, very efficient person. I got my stuff done and I wanted to leave and go be with my baby. And I was at a good stopping place. I'm a responsible adult. Like I got this. And yet I couldn't unless I took PTO or sick time. And even that would be sort of frowned upon.
Yeah.
As I was the only woman with kids. There was one other guy who had 3 children actually. And so that was when I was like, this isn't working for me. So long story short, I ended up leaving that job and I went off on my own as a freelance project manager, immediately made more money working at about 20 hours a week. I had 3 clients that were just contacts of mine that I reached out to and we figured it out. One of them was a referral that someone referred me to, and the other 2 were contacts. Okay. And started my own little project management freelance company. And then, similar to you, realized, wow, this really is pretty cool for working parents. And wouldn't it be cool if we could teach and support other parents who want to make this leap into doing that and seeing the other side of self-employment and realizing the freedom and autonomy that can come from that if you're willing to sort of branch out and take that what could be perceived as a risk, but a very calculated and really great risk if it can work out. So that's how Kenza Collective was born. And Kenza Collective is really evolving into kind of a go-to platform for any working parents who want to figure out how to make this leap. We teach people everything from taxes and finances to proposals and client management and all the things it takes. And under that umbrella, I still do take on projects. So I have a really big retainer client right now where I'm kind of a fractional CEO for them. So that part of the business is still going. And then we have kind of the educational arm of Kenza Collective. And when I say we, I mean my partner, Beth Gummery, her and I founded this together. So there you go.
That's great. That is a ton of info. And I wanted to, I was curious, first of all, you say work parents. So do you do men and women?
Yeah, I'm really passionate about making that clear that while a lot of our community happens to kind of naturally be women, we do have men in our community. We do have men we feature on our podcast. And there are a lot of men in this way too. And the reason why I'm passionate about that, there's a couple, but the main reason is that my husband is also a remote worker. He doesn't work for himself, but he has an incredibly flexible job and he's remote. Yeah. And the power of both parents being in that kind of position is really, really incredible and opens up a whole new way of living and a whole new lifestyle that wasn't as easily available even like 5-10 years ago. And a great example of that is my husband and I are exploring leaving the country and moving to Portugal for a couple of years. We're going on a month-long scouting trip later this year, and we can make that work because of our situation. So I want to make sure that both people in the partnership, regardless of gender, are empowered to make this leap if they want to.
I appreciate that. And I think that for right now, where I'm at with what I'm doing in our classes and stuff, I really gear it towards women who want to start their businesses. But I think there is room for bringing men in, especially men who are dads, who have families and want to have more flexibility and spend more time with their kids and all that kind of stuff. So I like that you do that, and it brings awareness to that. And also I think it's, it's not like you want to exclude men from moving into that realm. So I appreciate that. And then, so let me ask you this. Do you have a hard stop in terms of how many hours a week you devote to Kenza versus your other position, kind of part-time or virtual, is it CEO or virtual? For the other.
Yeah, that's been definitely a transition for me. I knew that if I was going to step into this role as being co-CEO of this pretty large software tech company, that, and also keep running Kenza, there were some tough decisions I was going to have to make. So one is I'm not taking any other clients or any other projects right now. And I've
Mhm.
had to turn down things, and that's been a weird experience,
Mhm.
but it's okay. And then in terms of hours, what I've really done is I've tried to do a lot of studying and reading and learning from people who are juggling multiple big responsibilities, and specifically those who have kids. I'm trying to see what are their strategies, because people do this. The other thing for me is that I only work about 20 hours a week, sometimes less, sometimes a little bit more, but on average, it's about 20 hours a week. Because I
Between
want to,
both, between both.
yeah, between both total.
Nice.
And so some of the books and resources that have helped me is a book called Essentialism,
I've
a
read
book called, yeah, The One Thing.
that.
Um, yeah, so there's Atomic Habits. There's a lot of great books on productivity that can help you stay really, really, really focused.
Yeah.
And that's the only way that I can basically run two companies at the same time, is
Yeah.
to be incredibly focused on what it is we're working on right now, or maybe for the next month or the next quarter,
Right.
and stay disciplined to that. So that's
Uh,
how I split it up.
I read those other two. I haven't read Atomic Habits, but would you recommend it?
Yeah, it's a good one. I actually haven't finished it yet.
Okay.
But I've heard so many great things about it, and so far it's really great.
Okay.
So it's just all about these, like, I'm a super, super productive person, but I've really had to evolve a lot when I'm being in this space now. It's one thing to manage a super busy studio and have that support around you. And it's another thing to do what I'm doing now, because I'm thinking of all those things, plus how to run a business, plus big, like, strategic decisions.
Mhm.
And so I've had to kind of shift away from this mentality that a lot of project managers have, which is, juggling a bunch of different projects at one time, where I might have found a lot of pride in that before. Now that is doesn't really work. So I think, the piece of advice I would want listeners to take away from this is, like, be really open to evolving your process and taking what you've learned and kind of questioning that, and making sure that that's still serving you in whatever you're doing or whatever you're trying to get to.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's a great lesson. And I actually talk about that as people are establishing their entity in their business, as they're
Mm,
putting together their mission statement and their values and
mhm.
their operations manual and all of that. Like, nothing is set in stone. It's
Yeah.
always changing. It's always being modified. And you sort of want to stay, like, whatever your value structure is, honor your values, but know that you're going to evolve, you're going to mature,
Yeah.
you're going to, have new priorities shift around. So I love that, evolving your process. Um,
Real quick before we move on, there's a nice
yeah.
visual that I came across recently, and I really cannot remember where. But the visual is of kind of thinking about your career trajectory, your business trajectory, as not like this linear thing, but
Mhm.
more of an upward spiral.
Yeah.
So I kind of picture myself spiraling up and up and up, and learning and growing and learning and growing.
Mhm.
And that, I don't know why that visual always sticks with me, but and it feels good, because it's like this continuous path that's going up. I even envision it being gold. I don't know why.
Yeah, why not?
So I don't know. There's something about that feels nice.
Mm. I had heard a podcast once, and it was interviews with several really successful women entrepreneurs, and
Mm,
one of them, I got to try to track it down because it's never left my mind. She talks
mm,
about how when you are sort of committed to the life of an entrepreneur, that, some people will say, I'm trying to get to the light at the end of the tunnel. But that
mhm.
if you really are committed to the life of an entrepreneur, you realize that you never get to the light at the end of the tunnel, because you're kind of
Yeah.
always going through the tunnel, and
Yeah.
there's light coming through in the tunnel, but you don't really get to the end of it, because
Right.
you kind of get addicted to that life. It's not for everybody.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
definitely not. I never even would have thought it would have been for me, and yet here I am 21 years
Yeah.
later. It was like,
I
still
know.
going, still going.
I
You know.
know.
Um,
Totally.
so let me ask you this, what, aside from, being super organized about time management, what are some tips that you would share specifically now for women who are moms and who want to start their own business, have an idea, have a concept, have a product or a service? What are some things that you would say are key in the very beginning stages?
Yeah, this is something I didn't do, but I wish I had done more of. And then I heard someone on our podcast give a little tip about this. And so basically what it is it's really easy to decide you want to start a business, whatever you're going to be selling, whether it's a product, service,
Mhm.
offer, whatever it is. And to get really excited about that and to create all the fun things, the
Yeah.
branding, the logo, the color
Right, right.
palette, the website, the messaging, the Instagram. It's I'm not saying it's easy to do that, but that's kind of the fun part almost.
Yeah.
And a lot of us can do that. But what the hard part is actually selling whatever your product or service is. And I wish that I had thought about this and humbled myself a bit more in the beginning, although who knows what would have happened. I don't regret anything, but I think the first thing that people need to do is really test their idea and make sure that people are going to pay money for it.
Yes.
And you don't need a brand, a logo, a website. I'm a huge proponent of having a website. So even if you have a simple one pager, I'm just saying, like when I first created my website for my project management services, it was dead simple. I didn't have a business name. I called it Tiffany Jones. And I picked yellow and blue and white, like this nice color palette. And I just went for it. I didn't spend a bunch of time messing because I needed to make sure that I was going to be able to sell what I was thinking. And how was I even going to do that? And there's this tendency in the beginning to try and put together like, okay, I'm going to do this package of services and I'm going to do, you can either do this with me or you can do this with me, you can do this with me. And the reality is you don't know any of that information yet. You're totally guessing. Even if you've been in the game for 15 years, like I was as a project manager at that time, I had only done it in the context of a traditional workforce.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure what it was going to be like to actually go into a company as a, consultant and sell project management services and what exactly they were going to need. So my advice is to not spin your wheels with all of the fluff and
Mm,
first focus on the bare bones of what you need to go out and start selling whatever it is you're doing.
mhm.
Then when you've proven that whatever you're trying to do can sell, then bring in that scaffolding.
Yeah.
And what's great about that too is now you're going to have some funds
Yeah.
to pay for that, and
Yeah.
you're going to have a lot more clarity. Even if you get one or two clients and go through maybe 3 or 6 months of work with them,
Mm,
going, oh, okay, so actually I think it would be better like this, or here's now my process.
yeah.
It's just going to be easier, and it's going to make sure that you can actually sell what it is you're trying to sell.
Mhm.
So that would be my advice in the very beginning.
I mean, that's so phenomenal. Like, I just want to isolate that and make sure that that clip gets, put out
Yeah.
into the satellite universe, because I'll tell you, these days you can, all that fluffy stuff that's really fun, you can
Mhm.
create that
Yeah.
so quickly, and it's
Yeah.
distracting and it's invigorating and it's got a
Mhm.
visual punch to it. But you
Mhm.
are so right. And the other thing that's true, we forget, the best form of marketing, the best form of business growth, the best form of true, you know, customers, returning customers and clients, is word of mouth.
Mhm.
Is if you have a solid product or service, you put it out there
Yeah.
effectively. Don't sacrifice quality for cost, or make sure what you're
Mhm.
doing is really solid,
Mhm.
and your followers will preach the gospel of you
Yeah.
for you. Some people are able to grow a business without ever having to create, giveaways and
Yeah. I didn't do
program.
any of that. I wasn't even on social media when I was focusing on freelance project management. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't even think I got my website up until, or like even fleshed out until a while later, because I was so busy with client work.
Yeah.
And if you're doing really great within one company, believe me, they will continue to find things for you.
Right.
Great people are hard to find. And I remember thinking in the early days, one of the myths we like to try and dispel is that you're going to be constantly hustling for clients. And that might be true for some different kinds of projects you do. It's kind of hard to talk so broad, but if you can find a couple of really good clients, 2, 3, you're going to be booked. And if you learn how to spot opportunities within their company to pitch yourself on the next project, the next project, the next project, they're not going to let you go.
Right.
So, just getting your feet wet in all of that, figuring it out first, like don't waste your time on all the other fluffy stuff until you really need to.
That's such good advice. I love that so much. So just a couple more questions. It's amazing to get this time with you, and it's so valuable. What's still like most challenging for you in this process of allocating time and building businesses? And, what 1 or 2 things is really still like, oh, this is so challenging for me?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I've definitely over the last year kind of come to a place where I'm like, okay, I don't really want to be a project manager anymore, which was kind of like my bread and butter. I had just in that level, I'd just been doing it for so long, and I was just like kind of ready for something else. And so that's where this sort of co-CEO or fractional CEO, there's like fractional CMO types of services that kind of came into play. And so, some of the tough decisions can be stepping out of your comfort zone and knowing that like when you are ready for a change, it's going to be tough. And I had a tough couple of months in the transition of like transitioning into this bigger role and then questioning everything. Like, should I even keep Kenza going? If I have this other big thing going, how am I going to do it all? But you do figure it out if you can kind of stick with it. So those, and like kind of determining with Kenza specifically, running a content marketing and a online content-based business like that it's a lot of work. And it's hard to like monetize unless you're, to fully monetize unless you're like at a really big scale. And so I'm trying to rethink kind of how to approach that in a way that stays true to how I want my business to be. And this has been something that, some of the viewers of this might have to really consider, is that if you're coming from the traditional workforce, we're really programmed to think about work in a certain way, that we have to sacrifice our personal lives to get work done, or that you constantly have to be growing, or just like all these things that you learn about business when you're working in that way. But when you own your own business, you have an opportunity to really create a business that serves your lifestyle and your desired lifestyle. And like, I did not expect how hard, even after, 3-4 years in business now, I keep coming up against that limitation for myself. And I keep thinking, I have to be doing better, faster, get it done. And it's like, no, man, you don't actually. And you can build this in the way that you want to do it. And that's okay. And it's all good. And look, everything's okay. And so and then your nervous system's like, oh, yeah, actually, we are kind of good. Like, we don't have to be hustling so hard all the time. Like, it's okay. So I think that's something that I struggle with still, and probably will for a long time.
I don't think you are unique in that struggle. I think that is not necessarily the human condition at large, but it is cultural. In what I find and what I have found in this country is we really celebrate and spotlight people that grow fast, grow big, sell high,
have a ton of followers.
It is sort of, and it's an addiction too. It's like, because you're measuring up against that, and you get a little taste of a push in your
Mhm.
followers, or a burst of business. And
Mhm.
it's hard to not be like, okay, I want that all the time. That's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
right thing. But, and I'm not saying that there's not merit in that too.
Right.
But one of the things you and I both share is we both have kids. And part
Mhm.
of doing this is to be able to say, I want to take my kids to school every day. I
Right.
want to be able to show up at all their soccer games and all their performances. And I want to be able to take a day off when I need to be
Mhm.
with them. If they're sick,
Yep.
I don't have to ask permission from someone else. I'm in charge of me.
That's
I
right.
give myself permission. But then we struggle with, do I give myself permission? Like, what do I
Right.
say to me when I need, I just want to
Totally.
take a day off with my kids.
Yep.
You
And
know?
one thing I've noticed is that when you put boundaries, like one of my boundaries is that I very, very, very rarely work at night, like after she goes to bed or anything. I mean, it's very rare. And that's a boundary for me. And there's reasons for that. If I turn my brain on like that at 7 o'clock at night, I ain't going to sleep anytime soon. Like I just know
Right.
that about myself. I just can't. And what's amazing, and oh, another like thing that I stick to is I work out like at least 4 days a week, and
Mhm.
that comes out of my 20 hours a week of work.
Hmm.
And what you'll find is that everything's actually totally fine.
Yeah.
Nothing doesn't get done,
Right.
nothing gets missed, things don't drop. And in fact, I'm a much happier, balanced, more productive person because I'm putting those boundaries in place and prioritizing, even though it feels counterintuitive, because some could say, well, you have 5 hours to sit down and get work done. You're spending an hour and a half of that going back and forth and going to a workout class. Like
Mhm.
those are precious. And it's like, well, that's what keeps me focused and energized and healthy and feeling good about myself. And all of that plays into a healthier business.
Yeah.
So those boundaries, those self-care boundaries are really, really critical for me, especially in what I'm doing now. And I haven't changed any of those since taking on this bigger role either.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
really amazing. Kudos to you.
Thanks. Thank
That's
you.
huge. And so my last question is, do you have a morning routine in a way that there's a couple things, like if when you start your day, you do these couple things religiously and it sets your mind and it sets your productivity and you feel good about the day. And if you miss them, it throws shit off. Like, do you have some of those?
Yeah, so I have a toddler, she's 3.5, and
Right.
one of my biggest things is that when she wakes up in the morning, she's a pretty early riser. Actually, she's in the 6 o'clock hour, which is amazing right now. It used to be the 4 and 5 o'clock hour. We just got out of that. Thank God. But regardless of when she woke up, a game changer for me was teaching her to wait. Like I give her a signal, which we don't have to get into, but she knows, she has the signal that knows I hear her and I'm coming in a minute.
Hmm.
And what I do is I get up, I brush my teeth, I wash my face, I get dressed, and I kind of just have just 5 minutes even to wake up and to gather myself. It used to be that as soon as she'd wake up, we'd let her in our room and, I'm in bed still and she's in and she's ready
Mhm.
to go. And then it was just kind of chaos.
Yeah.
And when I changed that to make sure that I got 5-10 minutes of just
Mhm.
slow wake up time,
Mhm.
it sets the tone for my whole day. I
Hmm.
don't have time to sit there and meditate. I wish I could, but just different phase in life. But those little moments are really, really helpful. And then the other thing I do is that, like I said, I work out, I catch an 8:30 class. I get up, I put my workout clothes right on, take her to school, go to that workout, come home, and I get those all scheduled on my calendar for the week.
Yeah.
And starting my day in that way just makes me feel so good when I finally do sit down to work. It makes me
Mhm.
feel like, okay, I have taken care of me.
Yeah.
I've poured into my bucket, and now I can take all that great energy and pour it into my clients and into our students at Kenza and everything else that I'm doing.
Yeah.
So those things really help me personally.
I love that. I am
Yeah.
such a proponent of creating a morning routine where you at
Mhm.
least do a couple of things that help center you, get you
Yes.
feeling good about yourself and focused. And, you know, whether you're somebody that gets up really early like I am, or that you have to because having a little one, which I know, or if you're somebody that starts your day later, maybe you can have the luxury of sleeping until 8 o'clock, you know, but
No, what's
still,
that?
I don't know, but still, I've heard people do that. But
What?
I know. But even then, when you get up, you should still have a couple of those grounding things that get you going for your day. So yeah, I was just curious because I talked about it the other day in my shoot the shit video, that when I get up and I'm able to get to the track near my house by 6 or like 6:15 at the latest, and I get a good 45 minutes in the morning to like see the sunrise and walk the track and think about my day and come up with creative ideas and listen to some music and stuff. My entire day rolls differently than on the days where I don't feel like getting up today. I'm too tired. I'm too this. And whatever reason, I let it go. And it's never the same. Never feels good.
Right. Well, one of the things that this workout studio I go to, it's a private like bar studio, you know, they if you reserve your class and if you cancel kind of last minute, I think there's some threshold, but it's, you know, within a couple of hours, they charge you $15 and I already pay a pretty high monthly fee. And so that is like, that keeps me in check. And when I like, it bugs me, but it also keeps me in check. And I know like if I have to cancel because my daughter woke up really sick or something, I can email the owner and she'll refund me. It's not a big deal, you know, but if it's just me being lazy, I'm going to financially feel that. And I kind of like it, you know? So maybe next time you don't get up and do your track, you owe yourself like $20 or something.
No, worse. I owe my husband.
There you go. You got to give him a $20 bill.
20 bucks.
That'll make you do it.
Yeah. Oh my God, he's gonna love that. What I told him. Right. So what you do and you're blah blah blah. Oh well. Okay, that was so spectacular, and thank you so much for taking the time, Tiffany. It's just always great to see you, and
you too.
And you know, I do want to say to the women who have taken the shit you need to know classes and are starting your journey, you know, rolling out your business, Tiffany is a great resource once you've shifted into that CEO mode to really kind of help flesh out the details beyond all the foundational stuff that I talk about. Now it's go time. You're a great resource for that. So.
Yeah, definitely. Come check us out at kenzacollective.com. Tons of resources, and we're kind of going through a transformation right now. We're going to be providing a ton of other outside resources for parents who create courses and coaching and services for people in this position. And then we're on Instagram at Kenza Collective. So come hang out with us.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Tiffany. And say hi to Beth for me.
Will do.
So much too. We totally bonded. And and I'll see you guys around. I'll see you soon, I hope.
Sounds good. Thank you, Lisa. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.